What's up everybody, 40 the Broadway Saiyan here, and welcome back again to my YouTube channel, bringing you guys another video on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Dark Knight CECIL, because Dark Knight CECIL is going to be getting the debut of his LD weapon, as well as his rework in conjunction with the new Boss Rush mode event that we're going to be seeing in Global Opera Omnia. But before we talk about that, if you guys are brand new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell, that way you guys are not missing out on future uploads. And if you guys enjoy what you see on this channel, hit that like button and share this video, as it does help me out. Don't forget to check out those fantastic resources out there for Dissidia Opera Omnia, such as the Dissidia DB, the Dissidia Info, the OO Tracker, the FFOO Tip, the Tonberry Troop, the FFTCC Podcast, and the rest of the fantastic, amazing DFFOO content creators and streamers. Those of you guys that create those infographics, those fantastic guides, the spreadsheets, just everything that makes the experience for this game that much better. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about Dark Knight CECIL and what he gets with his rework and the debut of his LD weapon. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and talk about Dark Knight CECIL, because Dark Knight CECIL is going to be getting his rework as well as the debut of his LD weapon in conjunction with the Boss Rush event that we're going to be seeing soon in Global Opera Omnia. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Dark Knight CECIL, or maybe you might need a review because you maybe haven't used him in a while or something like that, he is a dark damage dealer, and he has that Dark Knight mechanic where every time he uses or deals damage with his skills or abilities, he's going to be draining his health. And that was, a mechanic that he did in the game that he was originally from, which is Final Fantasy IV, and pretty much Dark Knights in general within the Final Fantasy lore did like to drain their health every time they dished out a lot of damage. But it was a lot of damage, and one of the cool things about Dark Knight CECIL is that he had a skill that allows him to automatically launch, and that comes from his skill 2 Valiant Blow. So he was actually really good to use for a lot of different launch comps, because launch damage is essentially additional damage that you're doing within that turn, which is really good for maximizing the amount of damage that you do, which makes him a fairly efficient unit. And then afterwards he does have access to an EX, and after he uses EX he does restore one skill usage of both his Darkness, his skill 1, and his skill 2 Valiant Blow. Now he also has access to buffs, and the buffs that he has are Power of Darkness. Those increase his own attack and max brave, and he also reduces his own HP damage taken, which helps him out a little bit because he's already dealing damage to himself. He also has another buff called Light Within Darkness. This gives him a self-brave regen effect, and then he also has access to 2 generic buffs that he gets right at the start of the battle, as long as you have his EX 2 out of 3, which are a max brave up and an attack up. So he has access to all of those, as you can see right here with my Dark Knight CECIL right here, as long as he has his EX weapon 2 out of 3. And then he also has the Dark Imperil debuff with his EX ability, which is really helpful because he is all about dealing dark damage. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, now that we've given you guys a review, let's just go ahead and go to Dark Knight CECIL's turn here. And I am taking this specific party comp in this Trey Lufenia, which is something that we'll be seeing later in Global Opera Omnia, because this is the exact team that I used to take this specific Lufenia down, and this team works really well, especially with Dark Knight CECIL and with all the launches and things like that. So let's go ahead and just get on to Dark Knight CECIL's turn here, and we'll talk about his rework. We'll talk about what his LD does and all that good stuff. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about Dark Knight CECIL. So first of all, his Darkness skill, the rework for his Darkness is both the normal and plus variants are now going to be dealing 6 brave hits, which is pretty good, and it's going to have a moderate brave potency increase. That's pretty much what the rework is going to be doing for skill 1. So some, nice upgrades there, more damage, more brave hits. And then afterwards, his skill 2, which is the one that you'll be primarily using, his Valiant Blow, the plus variant of this skill now deals 6 brave hits, and it also has increased brave potency, and it also also deals 50% HP splash damage. So that's pretty good. So then that way, he's going to be dishing out damage, he's going to be auto-launching, and also dealing some additional damage to the target that you weren't targeting. So that's pretty much the rework as far as Dark Knight Cecil goes. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the LD, because I do want to show this one off right away. So his LD is going to be granting him access to an LD skill called Soul Eater, and it has 3 total uses, and if you fully max limit break his LD weapon, he is going to be getting a permanent increase to his own max brave and attack. Now what Soul Eater does is he deals a 6-hit dark range single target brave plus single target HP attack that triggers twice. This has a 120% brave overflow, dealing 20% HP splash damage. It also self-brave refunds himself based on the HP damage he deals, and he inflicts Dark Imperil for 6 turns on all enemies, and he also inflicts a brand new debuff called Lunar Mystic for 8 turns. It also grants him access to that Power of Darkness and Light Within Darkness to himself for 4 turns, and after he uses this, because he is a Dark Knight, he is going to be consuming 60% of his own HP. However, this will also delay all targets by 1 turn, and this has no action delay. So after you use this, Dark Knight Cecil will have an immediate turn afterwards since it has no action delay. And then that debuff Lunar Mystic, what it does is it applies a sap effect on enemies, and it also increases the amount of HP damage taken by that enemy by 20%. So if you're looking for somebody that can do something similar to, let's say, what Kurasame does with this debuff, although Kurasame's is still better with that 30%, Dark Knight Cecil is actually an option for this, and he syncs very well with launch comps, because if you have this and pair it up with, like, for example, Pandemonium Summon and all the different launches that you could think of, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage within the launch. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Soul Eater looks like here. There we go. So as you can see, he applied the Dark Imperil, and he also applied 8 turns of that Lunar Mystic. So now these enemies have the sap effect, and we're also going to be dealing more HP damage to them by 20%. So that's pretty much what Dark Knight Cecil gets. Now, as far as rotations go, generally you do want to use that LD right away in a boss fight, because you do want to apply that really powerful debuff. You want to apply that Dark Imperil, so then that way, especially if you're going to be running a launch comp, which is what we're doing in this case, you're going to be maximizing your damage efficiency, per action that you take or per turn that you take. So now what I like to do with Dark Knight Cecil is just simply go right into his Valiant Blow, which is what we're going to do right here. And you're going to see the damage is huge. Like, this is a lot of damage that we're dealing here, especially with this party comp. So, I mean, 274,000 damage just right off of that. And then because, and we get another one, and also something to mention is that after you use Valiant Blow, because now it has that splash effect, the target that wasn't targeted by that, you can actually auto-launch them there. So now we're just going to go ahead and use Darkness, just so we can see how it looks like with the 6 Brave hits. There we go, and we get another launch. So that's pretty much Dark Knight Cecil in a nutshell, guys. He deals more damage. He has access to a fantastic LD. He is really, really good for those launch comps. And I'm telling you right now, there are going to be certain Lufenias where this team comp can actually really, deal with it pretty well, because anytime you run into a Lufenia fight moving forward that doesn't have any kind of immunity to either a delay or a launch, usually the launch comps are going to be used a lot, because it allows you to essentially bypass the orb mechanic because of the amount of damage that you deal with these particular compositions. So this is pretty much, again, what Dark Knight Cecil does with his rework and his LD, and what the benefits are of what it does, and also what kind of team compositions he really fits in because of what he can do now. Now, as far as recommended artifact passives go, if you decide to pull for him and build him up, 3 copies of attack plus 108, as well as 3 copies of max brave plus 330. Pretty simple. He's a damage dealer. You want him to capitalize on damage as much as possible. And then if you plan on investing in his high guard armor, what it does is it increases his own brave damage dealt, allowing him to exceed it by 15%, up to that 11,498 brave damage mark. So that's pretty much what his high guard armor is going to do for him. Now, in terms of the banner that's going to be coming out, it is going to feature all of Dark Knight Cecil's gear, including his LD. It's also going to be refeaturing Furian's burst weapon. So if you still haven't had a chance to get Furian's burst weapon, it's on that banner. And then it's going to bring back 2 other characters, the first one being Leon, who Leon, even though he is only an EX plus character at this point in Global, is actually really good. He's great for those specific fights where enemies only use primarily non-elemental attacks because he forces them to use the dark element, and then your party members in turn absorb the dark element. So he's really good for that. And then it has Kane, Kane is another character who dishes out damage and can also launch. However, his launch only comes from his EX. It does, however, battery his allies after he launches. So he's a decent range damage dealer if you're looking for another party member that can also use the launch mechanic and, deal some decent damage. But overall, the banner is pretty solid. Now, again, it really depends on how your resources look like. A lot of you guys are going to ask, is Dark Knight Cecil good now? Yeah, he is, because every character moving forward in this LD and Burst era, whenever they get an upgrade, for the most part, are going to be fantastic because it's all about team compositions. But just ask yourself before you pull on this banner, do I need somebody that can really help me abuse the launch mechanic, who has a really good LD skill, has a very powerful debuff attached to it? And if Dark Knight Cecil fits those needs, and your resources say that they fit those needs, then maybe this is the character for you. But all in all, he is a solid character, and I'm really glad that he is getting these upgrades, and he's just going to be such a powerhouse in terms of these launch compositions. Alright guys, well this is going to go ahead and conclude my video for Dark Knight Cecil. Thank you guys again for watching. This is 40 the Broadway Saiyan signing out. Mahal everyone.